I actually think this is so exciting for Division II. We've taken the time to define a strategic platform in which we talk about the balance between the academic life, high levels of competition, the opportunity to engage in community engagement. We take a look at all the data that shows us how much time our athletes are spending both on their academic pursuits and on their intercollegiate pursuits. And we understand that this is a particular moment in time that we have the chance to provide real meaning to the balance question, to how do we in Division II really pursue an intercollegiate athletic program that blends what we think are the very best attributes of our colleges and universities at Division II. So, it begins with this whole question of how much time do our athletes have to spend in competition, and are the numbers of competitions consistent with this notion of balance. We're going sport by sport to take a look at the numbers of competitions, and in some cases we know that we're absolutely fine, that there will be no changes. And in other cases we know that it's time to make some changes, that as you look at the history you can see the gravitation of the increase in the numbers of competitions to a point where it is not consistent with what we're saying is the mission. Well, certainly we know that there is pressure on every institution right now during the current economic recession to constrain costs in every aspect of the institution. And athletics certainly is not immune from that pressure. So on the one hand, it does create additional momentum and interest in people wanting to find ways to reduce costs. But I think it also suggests to us that we need to be very careful in our approach to it and not simply let the current economic conditions attempt to drive all the decisions or to attempt to drive decisions too quickly that may have unintended consequences.
I think the athletic department's like every other department on campus, and we have to take a good hard look at everything we're doing and whatever we're spending money on in this day and age, given the economic climate that we're in. I think we, as Management Council in Division II and as administrators, have looked at this and said, you know, we need to be proactive here. We need to take a look at some things with regards to Bylaw 17, our playing and practice seasons regulations, and what can we do to help our entire mission in Division II, if you will, with respect to our student athletes, balance of time between academics and athletics, with reference to their student athlete experience, and as well as, of course, look at the economic costs. And we need to help our presidents out who are facing severe budget cuts throughout the country, and see what we can do as intercollegiate athletics and as a division to help make the situation better for everybody on all campuses. I think as time has gone, we've seen the term season creep come up more and more because we've added more and more to our sports seasons and have never reduced. I'm going to give you a couple of examples historically that have happened that I think speak well to what we're talking about. In 1975-76, Indiana University's men's basketball team went undefeated, the last undefeated team in Division I, and their record was 32-0. And if you look at those teams that are competing in the Final Four in Division I now, they have all played 38, 39, and some even 40 games. And so that's an example of season creep, and I think many of us in Division II don't want to see that happen in Division II. And that's just one sport. It's happened throughout all of our sports. The other example that I would give you is recently our school was looking at inducting a Hall of Fame candidate into our Hall of Fame who was a baseball pitcher for the 1970s. And we looked at his statistics and they didn't seem good until we realized they'd only played 30 games per year at that time. And now, of course, we can play a maximum of 56, and most teams are playing 50 or above. And so there's another example of, over the years, we've added more and more and more, and I think now is the time we're taking a look at this and saying, wait a minute, we're starting to get out of balance here. This is Division II. These students are coming here to get their education and participate at a high level of college athletics, but we want to get back to a balance. And we use that word a lot in Division II, and I think it's very appropriate in this discussion. Beginning with the fall sports season, looking at moving the beginning of the fall sports season back 1 week. In other words, instead of bringing our student athletes in those fall sports early in August, bringing them back on the campus in the middle of August. Those are high-cost times for all of us in athletic departments. When you're bringing student athletes on campus and housing and feeding them at a time when school is not in session. And we've heard much feedback from the membership that that's an area where we really can help our institutions out economically by moving the start of that fall sports season back 1 week. I also think that that is related to our student athletes as well, in that it gives them 1 more week of the summertime. And many of them work out, of course, all summer long, but there is some merit to allowing them some balance in the summertime as well, and I think for our coaches as well of our fall sports, so that they can have a legitimate summertime also. So in the fall sports, that's the one area that we've targeted that we believe there is quite a bit of consensus to make one change there in regards to the fall sports seasons. In the winter sports seasons, we've looked at having a possible dead period between December 20th and January 1st. And it's a concept that came from a coaches group, and everyone seems to be very much in favor of looking hard at something like that. Because again, this is a time when school is not in session, we're housing and feeding athletes on our campuses, and there are no classes. And so that if we had what we would refer to as a dead period, meaning no practice, no competition, that also would save the institutions dollars, and we believe it would be good break for the winter sports student athletes and coaches as well. And then moving into the spring sports seasons, we think there could very well be some reductions in some of the sports seasons. Baseball and softball have been 2 seasons that have been discussed at great length, who have quite a few contests that they play. We think those can be reduced. There are some other items associated with those sports, softball tournament exception as well, that we're going to take a good hard look at, because that adds a significant number of contests on the student athlete's plate. And the other item in the spring sports seasons would be to take a look at the beginning of the spring sports season. Maybe we need to push that back a week or two. Again, to shorten the seasons and help our student athletes experience be better for them, and again, maintain a balance between academics and athletics. I think along with Bylaw 17, championships policies are going to be looked at very carefully. And I think there are many things we can look at that will make more sense for our student athletes, as well as save the association and, in many cases, our institutions. Again, save them some money at a time when times are very difficult economically. And I believe that one of the things that needs to be done, and we'll look at, is for the Championships Committee and the various regional committees to be able to have some flexibility and some autonomy to do some things within their region that just make sense. And they make sense from an economic standpoint, but they also make sense from the student-athlete standpoint of reducing missed class time and where the venue is held and so on and so forth.
I just said to somebody a few minutes ago, I think this has gotten a level of energy in the last 5 months that I would not have foreseen. And I think it's important to say that among presidents, I think there's a very high level of energy. But perhaps more importantly, I think I'm seeing a level of energy in athletic administrators as well. And I think it's for the same reasons. Every one of the people that I've talked to, whether they're a president or they're a senior athletic administrator, has said how important it is to maintain high levels of competition, how much they enjoy being a part of Division II athletics. but I think there is a real fear that if we don't take appropriate steps to put in the kinds of controls that will not only slow down the rate of growth in our intercollegiate athletic programs, but in some cases pull some of that cost back, that we could be in the near term in jeopardy of losing a number of our Division II intercollegiate athletic programs. And certainly individual programs within a department, but I would suggest that we could even be in jeopardy perhaps of losing some entire departments if we don't do this the right way.
I think it's very important that the membership understand this is a major issue. This is one of the biggest issues I think we faced, and I'm proud of the fact that Division II is facing this issue and addressing it. We're the only division within the NCAA that's looking at a reduction in playing seasons, and I think that's appropriate, and again, it fits well with our balance of in Division II athletics. We want feedback from the membership. It's critical for us to receive feedback, and in order to do that, I think people can contribute their thoughts and opinions in a number of different ways. Number one, they can contact the NCAA staff and offer their suggestions and ideas that way, and I think everybody has access to be able to do that. Number two, I think they can contact their management council rep that represents their conference and provide feedback that way. And also I think it's important that everybody on their own campuses have these discussions. We have different institutions and we have quite a few of them spread throughout the country, but it's important that we have these discussions on our own campuses with our presidents, our faculty reps, and all of our athletics administration in order to really get a good look at this from the strategic platform standpoint.
I think this is a very good move. I think it's just a beginning. I think we cannot ignore the immediate fiscal constraints that we're all under, and that prompts us to have a sense of urgency about some of these changes. That isn't the only reason to move in this direction. I think the more important reason has to do with the alignment of the strategic platform with our actual practices and what we do.
Higher education is facing having to be more efficient, really to do more with less, and I think that if we try to organize our athletic program so that it is more efficient, as we're asking the rest of the campus to be more efficient, it's very appropriate.
To us, this discussion is mostly about what's best for our student athletes, but we're not at all sad that it has some positive financial consequences. That means reductions in costs. And I don't think there's a campus or institution in this country that isn't looking at that issue. Every president I know is keenly interested in finding ways to reduce costs.
I think the discussion should be taken and should be going on whether or not there are economic pressures. This is our responsibility to our student athletes. The fact that there is economic pressure at this point, I think, probably heightens the awareness of it and makes us more cognizant of it, and also gives us some impetus to move forward perhaps a little more quickly in a measured way.